Hey, Anthony. So today we're talking about the IRS notice CP523, which can be a little intimidating. Generally you get mail from the IRS and it's not maybe the best news and you're a little afraid to open it. But imagine if that envelope said intent to levy or intent to terminate your installment agreement.
Ooh, yeah. There's just lots of scare there. I mean, assuming you open the letter. My years of doing this is always fun. When people come into the office, we would do the grand reveal of all the letters, a stack of letters they never opened from the IRS. They were just like, I assumed it was nothing good. I never opened them. And so we would start with that, like, oh, yeah, here's a CP523. And that would be one of the notices. People are like, yeah, okay, I can see why they would send that.
So why would they send that?
Well, they send it when you default an installment agreement that you have with them. And it can be surprising. One of the big surprises, people don't know how they defaulted the agreement, because a lot of them will say, well, I've been paying it. I don't understand why the IRS defaulted it. Well, you might have run up a new tax liability for another year. And that's one of the issues where people trying to solve an IRS problem themselves or with one of these tax resolution places, they're not really taking a look at the whole picture. They're just trying to put a Band-Aid. Hey, let me get the IRS to bed now. So here, sure, I'll pay that. But they're looking and it's like, well, you could pay your installment agreement or your estimated taxes, but you can't do both sometimes. And so that's one of the things that you have to look out for. And that's why when you're trying to negotiate with the IRS, you want something that's actually going to solve the problem, not just get you a few months down the road or a year down the road.
And it could be as simple as you forgot, or you didn't file taxes for the current year.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, and that's another thing that could default it as well. And I would say the letters are not exactly they don't offer a lot of clarity. They're just going to say you defaulted it.
No.
And one case, it said one of our clients got a CP523 for an installment agreement we just got accepted 9 months earlier. And we're like, what is this? Mm-hmm. Why are we getting this notice of default? He's been paying it. Nothing has changed. And so as we looked into it, the IRS says, oh, yeah, well, we wanted updated financial information. Well, in this case, the client owed a lot of money, and he makes a lot of money. Mm-hmm. And so they said, well, he defaulted. It's like, no. He didn't default because you're supposed to ask for it. And so that's a case where we don't want this default on his record. And so we can appeal this default because he actually didn't default. It's the IRS's own system screwed up and sent him a notice that he shouldn't have got. Now, we had to get him the financial information, but the fact is he didn't default this agreement because that's something you don't want on your record, on your permanent record with the IRS, because then they'll say, well, this is a bad taxpayer who we shouldn't deal with.
Right.
So we were able to get that straightened out.
And that's what they call a cap appeal. And you have, if I remember correctly, 30 days from the date of the notice.
That's right.
And 30 days also from termination if they end up terminating?
If you offer a proposal.
Okay.
And that's one of the things. The cap is generally a cap appeal, which is somewhat redundant because it stands for a Collection Appeal Program appeal. Mm-hmm. Just go with it. You know what? Sometimes you just stop asking questions. Just go with it. So the cap appeal can be really beneficial in installment agreements defaults. In most other situations, you have to prove the IRS did something illegal. And it's going to be another IRS employee saying, yes, that IRS employee did something illegal. So we've won a few over the years. Okay, it's not something you typically win.
Yep.
But the difference is when it comes to installment agreements, that actually is a pretty good. It's really a completely different standard. Mm-hmm. They are more or less like, okay, is this something that you could afford to pay? Is it reasonable? It's not that bad of a standard, and you could win cap appeals on installment agreements all the time.
Yep.
It's really not that hard, but the cap appeals usually, on a lien withdrawal request, good luck. I mean, you have to prove the IRS did something so kooky, and they marked the case that they did what they did. Because a lot of times they don't put in what they did.
Yep.
So you're trying to say, well, this is what they did. We don't see it. It's fine. It was legal. They had the right to do it. There was a default. There was agreement. Yeah.
So we can do cap appeal as an option.
Yep.
Cure the default, which is pay the money you owe. Mm-hmm. And if you do end up solving it that way, what we recommend is following up with the IRS to make sure that they have your case marked as they've reinstated the installment. Because
and I would definitely say don't just send money.
Okay.
Don't just send money because that notice might not be true. What it's saying is like you defaulted, to cure it, to pay the money. There might be another reason that notice isn't really telling you. So unfortunately, if this is something you're handling yourself, that's going to be that 2-hour phone call to
the IRS.
It is going to be a 2-hour phone call.
Now, what if you
yeah.
just can't afford? What if you can't appeal and you can't afford? Then what are your options?
Well, I mean, why not renegotiate?
Okay.
Well, perfect time. There's a reason why you can't afford it, because you can't afford it, right? There's a reason why you defaulted it, because you don't have money. You have options on the table here. Maybe this is time to look at an offer in compromise, right? Maybe it does work. There's some pretty good rules still in effect going on right now. Our IRS offer in compromise appeal rate is ridiculously high. I won't say because people won't believe it. And then standard, industry wide, it's still high when you're looking at it. People just aren't submitting. I just don't understand it.
Well,
so many people.
I get it, because before I started here, I didn't know you could negotiate with the IRS.
Yeah.
It is possible.
Yeah, and the IRS wants these offers in. The IRS made these rules more favorable because they want people to submit offers because they have that limited amount of time to collect.
Yep.
So it's in their best interest for you to do this, because your other options, right? Because now this debt's been going on for a while, you might be able to file Chapter 7 bankruptcy, this is and walk away, and you probably have some other tax debts going on, so that or some other non-tax debts that you might be able to discharge, and that happens to people a lot, because the IRS chapter bankruptcy, they might get a nice round figure.
Yep. Same with hardship status. I mean, you're sort of put on hold for a while if you do hardship status,
and then you could write out the statute of limitations and never pay them anything.
Yep.
So. That's really why if you are getting one of these notices, this is really a time to think about your entire financial picture. Of course, you really only know your picture, so you're not really in the best position to know exactly what to do.
Well, I think the important thing is to take action, because you do only have that 30 days. And after that, the IRS does what they technically can do in their power legally. They can levy your
they can levy
accounts and things like that. So if you do get one of these notices, number one is take action.
Yeah, and it's really the action is, even if you think you know what it is, you're going to have to do that phone call to them, and it is a 2-hour, it's going to be a 2-hour phone call.
Yep.
So just put aside that time. Don't try to say, okay, I can call them in the morning before I go to work. Okay, if you go to work at noon, sure. Just sort of set that time aside and know that you will be on there. And just because otherwise you'll be, a lot of times people, they call and the IRS hold will say, oh, your whole estimated hold time is 30 minutes. But it actually ends up being an hour and a half.
And then there's always the possibility of a courtesy disconnect.
A courtesy disconnect. If you're on hold with the IRS for more than 2 hours, they disconnect you as a courtesy. So many people call, they're on hold, and then they get frustrated. And then they're like, well, what's the worst that can happen?
Well, it can. All right. Well, thanks for the information, Anthony. If you have questions, or if you like this video, don't forget to like below. Leave some comments or questions. We'll get back to you. You can subscribe for more awesome tax info. Thanks for watching. IRSMedic, the law offices of Parent & Parent, LLP. Real tax attorneys for tough tax problems.